Hello again. Welcome back to your 5-minute devotional stop with me, Amy Phillips. I'm on a journey moving from fear to faith, and I hope you'll join me for Just Believe. Hello, friends. So I'm reading through Genesis with the Bible Recap podcast, which, as a sidebar, you can still join anytime if you want to. And I came to that passage in Genesis 45 where Joseph reveals himself to his brothers, 20 years after they sold him into slavery. So let's have a quick recap of Joseph's life. So he's the youngest of 11 brothers. His youngest brother, Benjamin, hadn't been born yet. And apparently he is his dad, Jacob's favorite, because at the time he's the only son of his favorite wife, Rachel. So already his brothers have reason to dislike him because he's the favored son. But then he starts having dreams of his brothers bowing down to him. And that's just the final straw for these young men. They can't take it anymore. So they talk about killing him, but decide it's best to just sell him off to some Ishmaelites who take him down to Egypt to be a slave. So in reading the story, we can quickly read our few chapters in the Bible and not take into account that it was 13 years from then that Joseph spent not just as a slave, but a slave who was wrongly accused and then sent to prison. 13 years. So he was 17 when he was sold and 30 when he was taken out of prison by Pharaoh and made the ruler over all of Egypt. So it was 13 years of being accused, then enslaved in prison, then forgotten. He had years of abandonment, loss of his homeland, loss of his family, 13 years of wrongful imprisonment. Are you getting the picture? Sometimes we're angry at God if we have to wait a day to see an answer to prayer, let alone years of waiting in horrible conditions. So then we get to chapter 45. Joseph's brothers have come to Egypt to get grain in the time of famine, and Joseph is the one who can give it to them. They don't know it's him, and there's this beautiful story of freedom that happens. Freedom physically for Joseph and freedom emotionally for both Joseph and his brothers. Go read it again if you get a chance. But now it's been 9 years since Joseph's been out of prison. And Joseph reveals himself to his brothers, and this is what he says. "Come close to me. I'm your brother Joseph, the one you sold into Egypt. And now do not be distressed and do not be angry with yourselves for selling me here, because it was to save lives that God sent me ahead of you. For 2 years now there's been famine in the land, and for the next 5 years there'll be no plowing and reaping. But God sent me ahead of you to prepare for you a remnant on the earth and to save your lives by great deliverance. So then it was not you who sent me here, but God." Joseph believes that so deeply, he says it 3 times. It was God, not you, who did this, because God had a much bigger plan and something good he was bringing out of their jealousy and anger. Wow, what a perspective and what maturity and humility was in Joseph. Can you imagine standing in front of the people who cut you off from your own family and people group? Can you imagine the fear of a 17-year-old being put in a cistern thinking you've been left for dead only to be sold into slavery? Then a 20-something-year-old being wrongly accused and thrown into an Egyptian prison far away from home with no one, not one person to vouch for you. And yet it says through it all, God was with Joseph. Each step, God prospered all that Joseph did, even in prison. And obviously, Joseph knew God was with him. So years later, their father Jacob dies, and the brothers are still afraid Joseph was really just saying that stuff about God sending him there. So upon Jacob's death, they make up a message to send to him in chapter 50. When Joseph's brothers saw that their father was dead, they said, "It may be that Joseph will hate us and pay us back for the evil that we did to him." So they sent a message to him and said, "Your father gave this command before he died. Say to Joseph, please forgive the transgression of your brothers and their sin, because they did evil to you. And now please forgive the transgression of your servants of the God of your father." It says that Joseph wept when they spoke to him. His brothers also came and fell down before him and said, "Behold, we are your servants." But Joseph said to them, "Do not fear, for am I in the place of God? As for you, you meant evil against me, but God meant it for good, to bring it about that many people should be kept alive as they are today. So do not fear, I will provide for you and your little ones." Thus he comforted them and spoke kindly to them. Wow. Joseph, he truly meant and believed that God was sovereign over his life. He really believed that it was God who sent him there and did not hold his brothers accountable. Can you imagine now standing before those people or circumstances that feel like they've stolen life from you and saying, I know you are the people or circumstance that made this happen in my life, but God was working behind the scenes because he had something so much bigger in mind. We may not be able to firmly say it was God who sent me here, but we can declare that God has brought good in circumstances, maybe in ways we can't even see yet. I have a circumstance in front of me at the moment that I started to think about differently this morning. God is working this not just for my good, but for others' good. I can't see it all yet, but I can trust God to do that. My husband and I talk to each other about being in the weight room of faith. Something difficult comes up and we say, oh, God's putting another few pounds on your bar, lifting a little bit more in faith. God's saying you can handle a little more. You can trust me a little bit more now than you did before. I'm getting there today, lifting my bar in the weight room so that I can say with all the faith of Joseph, it wasn't you, circumstance or person, that has me here, but God himself who sees all things. He has moved and positioned me even if I don't understand why. He's using something that someone could have meant for harm or out of jealousy or any other reason and making it good. He's sovereign over my life and no one else is. God's plans cannot be thwarted over my life. So what the enemy meant for harm, he will turn into something beautiful. I know he will because I've seen it again and again. But I recognize, and I hope you do too, that sometimes I want the beautiful to be a certain way. And that beautiful may not be my way, but it will be good, the beautiful and the journey to get there. But no matter what it looks like or how it feels, or if we're in prison, God will be with us. That's the bottom line. It took Joseph 13 years to get to freedom and another 9 to see redemption. But through every moment, God was with him. You may not know where you are on your journey and you may not know where you're going, but what matters is that God is with you and he's doing something beautiful right now in your life. May you have the courage to speak to every hard circumstance. It's not you that has me here, but my Father in heaven who is making all things new. Do not fear, beloveds. God is with you. Thanks for joining me today. I hope you feel encouraged and strengthened. If you want to connect with me, you can find me at amybphillips.com. See you next time.